Hi, Bishop Peter.
G'day, mate.
And welcome to another episode of Faith Questions with Bishop
Thank you.
Peter. I understand you have some happy family news. What?
I do it at the weekend, just past. Teresa and I became grandparents.
Oh, wow.
Our first grandchild or granddaughter was born in Auckland, and we're absolutely thrilled.
Very exciting. And what is the name of your
Our
grandchild?
granddaughter's called Kiritapu.
Kiritapu. What a wonderful name. That's awesome.
That's
And I
great.
understand the mothers, or the grandmothers, I should say, were also honoured in the name.
Yes, each of them, their names are the middle names. Of
Okay.
Kiritapu, so
Very
they're delighted too.
That's fantastic. Just earlier in the month, of course, we all celebrated the coronation of King Charles III. Do you have any thoughts and reflections about that?
Well, it was a pretty amazing service, ceremony, performance of fantastic music. And of course, many of us were not around to witness the previous coronation, which was 70 years ago.
Right.
Though that one was televised, and so people over the age of 70 may have memories of seeing it. Although I don't think we had many television sets in New Zealand back in 1953.
No.
So it was a pretty awesome event. Also interesting to see people's reactions, some of whom were saying things like, "Oh, this is very religious," or "This is a very Christian ceremony."
Yes.
And that will have come perhaps as a shock to people who've thought that being king and the, if you like, the paraphernalia that goes with that is sort of just about some kind of tradition and custom, as opposed to an event and an office invested with huge religious significance and theological underpinnings. So what we saw in the service was effectively a very long, very colourful, very diverse prayer that King Charles will be the king that God would want him to be,
Yes.
the king that will bring justice and equity and mercy to his people. By extension, meaning, of course, the governments that work under him, the British government, the New Zealand government. And while some people might be uncomfortable about the religious aspects, where is the harm in praying that we will be led with justice, fairness, mercy, compassion? That's a good thing.
Absolutely. And speaking of the religious aspects, well, the whole thing was a religious event. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, of course, had a sermon slot, as it were,
Yes.
quite a short sermon. What were your impressions of what he said?
I think two things stuck out for me. One was he really emphasised the importance of the Holy Spirit's work in King Charles's life. And basically he was saying what any of us might say to each other. We cannot live the life God wants us to live without the power of the Holy Spirit helping us to do that. The other aspect was emphasising the importance of service, of sacrificial service following the model of Jesus himself. And of course we heard right at the beginning of the service in a beautiful moment when a young boy greeted King Charles and he said, quoting words of Jesus from Mark 10:45, I've come to serve and not to be served. And I know people are concerned about how much gold was involved in the service and colourful garments and the gold coach at the end.
Yes, indeed.
But if we take that away, we're left with a commitment of King Charles to be king for all of us. Now, whatever we think about having a king, and there'll be people watching this who are very keenly committed to us becoming a republic, for example.
Yes.
Every system of government of human people normally has one person at the top, so to speak. Again, whether we have a king or not, isn't it great that in this case we have a person committed to serving and not to being served?
I think that's a really great point. And I was myself touched when King Charles said, I've come to serve and not to serve. But therein, in a sense, lies a paradox that, he is surely a person of great privilege and wealth, and yet here he is saying the words of Jesus, who himself was of, absolute, poverty in almost every respect, not encumbered with the trappings of power in any way. So we have a paradox almost there, do we not?
We do, especially if we saw the intimate details of service in the household of King Charles. Occasionally we see stories in magazines which suggest that he's waited on hand and foot or whatever. But it may be worth remembering that Jesus himself, as he went about his mission, had, according to Luke chapter 8, a group of women who followed him and kind of looked after the household duties, no doubt not only of Jesus but of the disciples. They needed feeding and all that sort of thing. I don't mean, by the way, in recalling that story, to confine women to the role of service, but just to say Jesus, who came to serve, nevertheless had a team, if you like, around him.
Okay.
So one way to think about the household of King Charles, which does include a lot of people in service mode, is they help him to do the job. And he, of course, in the end, has devoted his life to turning up to events involving people, opening community centres, being patron of societies that maybe help the underprivileged in society. Yes, he is a man of immense wealth and great privilege, but he is also someone who's dedicated his life to service.
To service, absolutely. So how do you think the whole coronation will have fed into the mission of the church in the UK and elsewhere? Or is that a tricky question? Or an imponderable question, at least?
Well, I don't know about it being imponderable, but I think there's a lot to ponder. One of the things is, but I'm focusing on some reactions in New Zealand, which is I think some people were watching the splendour of it and listening to the glorious music and didn't really think that much about the religious nature of the service, let alone the content of it.
Yes.
I was working on some reactions on social media. So it's possible that of the millions of people who watched in Britain, they just didn't really pay attention to the church aspect of it. But I think it will have been good for the Church of England to be so visible and public as a part of that which makes the way Britain is governed distinctive. That it is, in a certain sense, a Christian kingdom. Meaning, in this instance, there is a king, but the king is prayed for as someone who we want to follow the example of Christ and no other example. And I hope that's really good for the Church of England's overall witness to the nation.
It was certainly a witness, there's no question of
Absolutely,
that. And the words were so thoroughly imbued with the gospel values that it was unmistakable.
Absolutely.
And that is a positive thing. Well, it's time to close off now, so thank you for your comments on the coronation of King Charles.